All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming out to cover our Auto Theft Task Force News Conference. Before we get started, I wanted to simply make some introductions and set up the order of speakers. First up, we will have Chief Anthony Holloway of the St. Petersburg Police Department. He will talk about the background and the reason why the task force was created in the first place. Next, we will have Chief Eric Ward of the Tampa Police Department. He will talk about the impact of the task force on Tampa PD's jurisdiction and the benefits of this regional approach. And then Sheriff Bob Gualtieri will talk about the overview of the work of the task force and provide the final results. We'll take questions after that, and it's worth mentioning that various other representatives from various law enforcement agencies are here today as well, to include Chief Dan Slaughter of the Clearwater Police Department, whose agency also assisted in this endeavor. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Chief Holloway.
Good afternoon, everyone. What I'll do is give you the background, and I'll turn it over to Chief Ward. Back in February of this year, we started seeing an increase in our auto thefts. So we had a conversation with then Chief Castor to say, okay, what can we start doing? We still got more information. Then later on, we just started looking at, okay, our cars that are being stolen in St. Pete are being dropped off in Tampa, and Tampa cars are being dropped off in St. Pete. So then at that time, later on, Chief Ward and I got together, and we decided on, let's start putting a task force together because we're having the same problems across the bridge. So he jumped in right away and said, okay, let's start sharing information. So we started sharing hot sheets with each other, like what cars are being stolen out of your city, what cars are being stolen out of our city. And then we realized we had a bigger issue. So that's when we got on the phone and we contacted Sheriff Gualtieri. And right away he said, sure, whatever we need to do, let's do it. So then we put our three agencies together and we started tackling this problem. But then we found out it's still a bigger problem here in Pinellas County. So then we started doing a conference call with all the agencies here in Pinellas County. So at 11 o'clock every morning, we would share information on what cars are being stolen, who's being arrested, and just all the information. So that's how the task force came about. So we started in August of this year, and the team that were involved, again, was St. Pete, Tampa, and the Sheriff's Office. And thanks to these agencies to my left and to my right, they have the assets that we don't have. These helicopters that you're going to hear about, they're a great tool. It really helped us where we didn't have to chase anyone. We just know where the car is, let the chopper follow them around. We surround the car, and then we take the people into custody. So without Tampa, without the Sheriff's Office, St. Pete, we would have been stuck because we would have still been chasing a lot of these cars throughout the city. But this made it much safer for us to do, where we could back off, wait for the chopper to spot the vehicle, set a perimeter, and then get these guys and gals as they're coming out of their car. We targeted a lot of areas. We did a lot of information with crime analysis, so we know where the cars are being taken and where the cars are being dropped off. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Ward. But if we're going to solve this problem, you hear both chiefs saying it and the sheriff, if you lock your cars and if you take your keys out of your cars, 90% of vehicles that we are recovering, we won't have to recover them anymore. Chief Ward.
Thank you. As the chief mentioned earlier, one thing that was very significant in Tampa is that over the past 6 months, we saw a significant increase in our auto thefts and auto burglaries. So as we dug into it, we realized that it had a common factor, which was the Howard Franklin Bridge. So as we looked at our suspects, as well as the suspects in St. Petersburg, we found a trend, which was most of them were juveniles. So as we compiled that data and a list of names, we got together, as it was mentioned earlier, to form this task force. The task force was very effective, at least in Tampa, as well as in St. Pete and Pinellas, simply because over the past 6 months, we had a significant increase in crime and auto thefts and auto burglaries. And over the past 30 days, we experienced something close, similar to a 32% decrease in auto thefts and auto burglaries. And that's a direct contributor to the auto theft task force. Putting the right assets in place, working together as a team is the only way that we can get this job done. We tried the education process, which is alerting all of our citizens along that corridor to just simply lock their cars, take the keys out of the cars. That failed, so we had to change gears. So forming this task force was a great idea and a great opportunity for us to work together as a team, share our resources, and to combat this one significant crime that was troubling both sides of the bay. So with that, I would pass it on to the sheriff.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Ward. I want to take a minute to just, before we talk about the results specifically of the task force, take a couple minutes to share some statistical information with you that helps, I think, paint the picture, the nature of the problem, at least as we saw it here in Pinellas County and as it relates to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. In 2013, the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office took 332 reports of stolen vehicles. So that's in the 13 contract cities and the unincorporated part of the county. In 2014, we took 404, and we're on track this year to take 510. So it's most definitely an increasing problem. As the board shows here, for the first 6 months of 2014 compared to the first 6 months of 2015, is that we are up 31%. So that's a significant increase in the number of stolen vehicles. As both chiefs have talked about, and as I've talked about many, many times, is that this is a problem that can be seriously mitigated. I'm not going to say it's a problem that can be solved, but it's a problem that can be seriously mitigated with the public's help. And their help comes from simply locking your car doors. These are crimes of opportunity. The absolute majority of these are not situations where there's any forced entry. These are situations where you got a bunch of kids, young people, that are roaming through neighborhoods and looking for those unlocked cars and finding the keys in the cars or other ways to steal them. So again, using some numbers, from January 1st of 2015 through July 31st of 2015, so a 7-month period, for all the agencies that use the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office records management system, which again are some of the other cities, there were 520 reports of stolen cars in Pinellas County. 75% were known to be unlocked and or have the keys in the cars. So that's a huge number, and it does paint the picture. It does tell the story of what's happening, and these are really crimes of opportunity. So what happens is when these kids, and I say kids because a lot of them, we'll talk about one here in particular, but they're probably early teens, 14, 15, up into their mid-20s. And they're out there roaming the streets, and they take these cars. And then they use the cars to engage in other crime, other criminal activity. And one of the things that they find is a game, but it's a deadly game. It's a game of cat and mouse, where as soon as they see a sheriff's office car, a police department car, and they see that that cruiser gets behind them, oftentimes they run and they flee. They don't even wait for the officer or the deputy to light it up, is that they just flee. But I can tell you that in February of 2015 through August of 2015, just the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office alone, so one agency, we had 333 incidents where a deputy or an officer got behind somebody and lit it up and the person fled. And the average of that is 47 times a month. In August of 2015 alone, there were 71 of those incidents. But because we don't pursue people by policy for only traffic violations or for stolen cars, is that the actual pursuits so far this year have only been 3. But as they run red lights, they flee from the police, and they're engaging in dangerous and deadly conduct. So this is a very serious thing that happens when people are leaving their cars unlocked, unattended, the cars are being stolen, and these kids are out there engaging in very dangerous conduct. So what goes hand in hand with that is not just the stolen cars, but the car burglaries. And I've talked about this again many times. And between January 1 and August 27th of 2015, again, just for the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, we have taken 1,576 reports of car burglaries. 86% were unlocked cars. And you know what? A good chunk of those, and it's very, very irresponsible for people to do this, there's a bunch of them where they leave their guns in their cars. And these cars are unlocked. And we had one not too long ago where a person left their car unlocked, and it was an AR-15 and 2 9mm handguns that were stolen from the car. And even when we ask these people, give us the serial number of the gun so we can enter it in the system, they don't even know. Remember, go back to December of last year, December of 2014. Officer Charlie Condek in the Tarpon Springs Police Department was shot and killed. And he was shot and killed with a gun that came from an unlocked car burglary. It's wrong. And this can be stopped. People need to lock their cars. We need your help. We need the public's help in dealing with this problem. We can't do it alone, and it is a problem that we can seriously mitigate if people will help us by locking their cars. So getting into the task force a little bit about the task force itself. The deputies and officers from all three agencies work 7 days a week. We had a total of 36, 12 from each agency that were assigned to the task force. And they work diligently to detect through the use of daily briefing sheets, and that's what you see over here to the right, these hot sheets. So as was mentioned in the daily conference calls, there would be information gathered and information disseminated, and they literally hit the streets with these hot sheets looking for these cars. And they had great success in finding these cars, and then in a very tactically sound way to mitigate the exposure to danger for themselves and to the public, is that they were able to safely take these people into custody without pursuits, without having to take action to put the public at risk. And that was heavily accomplished by the use of air support from the Tampa Police Department and the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, and the use of some other technology that we had available to us to be able to surveil these people and get them to a place where they could be safely taken into custody without having that cat and mouse game where you get behind them with a marked car, you light it up, and they run. So the successes we had were because of the number of people, the quality training, and the quality tactics that they employed to accomplish this. So during the course of the task force so far, because it's not over, we will continue with our efforts in this regard until we see these numbers go down and these kids get the message and knock it off and stop doing it. So during the period of time so far, since August when we began, there's been 64 arrests and 46 recovered stolen vehicles. A number of the people were charged with crimes in addition to the grand theft for the stolen vehicles, and all of that information is listed on the boards that you have here, down here on my left, where it lays out all the different charges. One in particular that I do want to mention to you, because this is one example and there are others, one example of the problem that we see is these kids, and I say kids because this one right here, Cleon Williams, he's 15 years old. And look at 15 years old, look at his criminal history. Is that the most serious crime begins there back in 15 with grand theft and carjacking. So he carjacks a car. And then from there, he's got 4 grand theft autos. And the most that has happened to him so far is spending a few days, literally a few days, in the juvenile detention center. And after his most recent arrest, 2 days ago, he's released to home detention. So how soon is it going to be before he's out stealing another car? How many times these kids have to steal cars before somebody decides they shouldn't put them back on the street again? Something else needs to be done. This is a problem with the system. In my view, the system is not working well when you got a kid like this that steals cars 4 and 5 times and does an armed carjacking, and then he goes home to mom and he sits on home detention. It's not working. So something needs to be done better in that regard. So again, we will continue with our efforts. We will continue to do everything we can to keep the community on both sides of the bay safe. And at the same time, send the message to these people who are doing this is that we're not going to put up with it, and we are going to do everything we can to put you in jail. And hopefully the system will do a better job than what it's doing in keeping these people locked up so that they can't get out there and really, in many respects, terrorize the community with what they're doing. These pursuits are very concerning. These fleeing and eludings are very concerning because as these people do this, and sometimes it's several times a night, they are putting the public at risk. They're putting the public in danger by running red lights and by running people off the road and engaging in very dangerous driving. So it is more than just property crime. And then as they're using these stolen cars, they're engaging in other types of criminal activity as well. So that's the problem we face. I think we're going to see, I know we're going to see, as we finish this year, we're going to see an increase in crime in our county because of this type of street crime activity. Car burglaries are up, stolen cars are up, and also so far we're seeing street crime robberies are up. But it's all being committed by these people, and they're all doing the same thing. Again, a lot of it can be fixed by people securing their property. So we're asking for the public's help in that regard.